my name's Eric Hopkins, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, or you are a returning viewer and have not yet done so, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. So this is my Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings review here on the channel. I'm going to go into some non-spoilers first before I get into the spoilers portion of this episode here. So stick around for that if you want to hear me ruin all the details about this movie. But before I get into that, just my general overall thoughts of this film. I definitely enjoyed Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. I think I'm saying it right. In the film, we finally get clarification of how to say his name. It's been a lot of speculation online about how to say Shang-Chi, however you want to say it, but apparently it is Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi? Yeah, I believe. Anyway, it's still going to be kind of hard to remember sometimes, but Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings here. So, definitely a very, very good film. It harkens back to the days of the MCU, back when we were getting origin stories like Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, the First Avenger. This film is definitely along that side of things because it's more of a building point for the MCU, because after Avengers Endgame, we know that the Avengers are not exactly in the same places they were at the beginning of Infinity War. Obviously, you know, they were broken up, and of course, all the members of the Avengers were still around, and some of them weren't retired, some of them were still alive, things like that. So we are now in a place in the MCU where Marvel Studios is now building up new characters for their new Avengers roster, or who, well, if they're going to even be called the Avengers at this point. We'll have to wait and see what they do. And we're getting a lot of that with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with WandaVision, Loki. We've got some new heroes and some new villains and things like that coming around. And of course, Black Widow also kind of introduced us to some new characters as well. And Shang-Chi does the same thing here with the main, person in the film, the main protagonist, as it were, with Shang-Chi, and of course his friend Katie as well. So, I mean, they're doing a good job of building up some new heroes here, and I just think that this whole thing is absolutely beautiful to look at. It's rich in Asian lore and culture, and it does for the Asian culture much what Black Panther did for the Black culture. It does a very good job of bringing all those elements to the big screen, and I think it's absolutely beautiful to look at. I've always been I always thought that culture was absolutely just gorgeous, and just, all the, traditions and stuff that they have, I think it's just absolutely incredible. So I think that Marvel Studios did a very good job of bringing that representation to film here. When it comes to the story, absolutely very heartwarming, very, family-centric when it comes to the relationship between Shang-Chi and his father, Wenwu, and of course his mother and his sister, Xia Ling, and all these new characters that they're introducing into this world. And I just think they did a very good job with the dynamic between every single one of them, and I think they were all just casted 100% brilliantly. And I think that's one of Marvel's big strengths here, is casting things brilliantly. The action sequences, absolutely stellar. I mean, it's everything you want in a martial arts film. A lot of Bruce Lee inspiration, especially a lot of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, things like that in here. Definitely along the side of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Maybe a little Kill Bill, some of that stuff maybe in here a little bit too. I definitely enjoyed all that. And of course, the whole story around the Ten Rings themselves, which is what this movie is pretty much focused on. And of course, building up a new character. In that regard, I thought this movie did all that in spades. I was not super thrilled with some of the uses they did with one of the returning character, which I'll get into in my spoiler section here. It wasn't a whole lot to really make this film worse for me, but there was moments in this film, it's kind of like, all right, did we necessarily need him in here that much? But we'll get into that here in just a minute. Overall, though, I thought this film was very good. It was a solid, fun watch to movie theater, and definitely good to see the MCU back on a strong point. I liked Black Widow, but to me, this movie is more on the upper echelon of MCU movies for me. I wouldn't put it up there with Avengers, Infinity War, or any of the Avengers films for that matter, but from an origin story standpoint, I thought they did a very good job of introducing probably a new character into the world that will be an Avenger, or whatever. He's going to be a big central focus moving forward here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I cannot wait to see what they do with him. But with that being said, let's get into the spoiler sections here, so I highly recommend you go check it out here. But if you want to, stick around. If you've already seen the movie already, by all means, stay here, and I'll get into all the juicy details after this spoiler warning. All right, so I'm not going to go into like every little bit of details about this movie here, but at the same time, I do want to get into a few things. First of all, that opening sequence, with the bus fight, I should say that it's not right at the very beginning of the movie, but it's the first major sequence with Shang-Chi. Of course, that where where he's kind of revealing himself a little bit to the world, especially to his friend Katie here, played by Awkwafina. And first of all, the chemistry between Awkwafina and Simu Liu, or Liu, however you say his name, between Katie and Shang-Chi is very well done. I thought they had a great dynamic back and forth, especially when it comes to the comedic elements that they had between them, of course. And I just thought it was a lot of fun. This opening bus sequence with the martial arts that they were displaying in that film, I thought it made just everything pop. It made everything look great. And I want to see much more of this style of action in the MCU. I think introducing a martial artist to the Avengers characters, the Avengers world here, is going to bring a new wrinkle and a new element to some of the storytelling that you can do. And I know it's kind of like, well, what can a martial artist do for, like a threat against Thanos or something, cosmic? Well, by the end of this movie, you're going to see exactly why Shang-Chi could be a very major player moving forward, because the power of those 10 rings, man, can make him do extraordinary things. And by the end of this film, you get to see that, especially by the end with the big climax with the Great Protector Dragon against the Soul Sucker, or whatever that thing was called there at the very end, that was basically trying to run roughshod through this village and try to collect their souls and stuff like that. That was manipulating Wenwu, the real Mandarin that we never got to see in Iron Man 3, of course. And of course, I thought this movie did a great job of kind of tying it into Iron Man 3 a little bit here. Of course, we get the return of Trevor Slattery in this movie, which is the character I thought maybe they used a little too much for my personal liking, but it wasn't so much to where it really detracted from the film itself. They used him sparingly enough to where we got, we get a little bit of a backstory, with certain things that goes on through Trevor Slattery, and of course, his relationship to the real Mandarin, Wenwu, which they really only reference him as the Mandarin, like really only one time, when Wenwu's telling the story about how about 10 years ago, somebody tried to portray him when, he went up against Iron Man, and of course, it, collapsed, certain things and stuff in that movie and all that sort of stuff. So he was trying to tell the story about what happened with Trevor Slattery there. So that's about the only time they really call Wenwu the Mandarin. Wenwu calls himself that, based on what they were, saying in Iron Man 3, that he was the Mandarin. But other than that, they really don't go into that. And really, they did a great job with Wenwu in particular when it comes to like why he's doing his character motivations. And to me, it made him a very good villain in the MCU. One of the better villains that the MCU has had, because you got to see why he's doing what he's doing, about how he wants to bring back his, lost wife that passed away. And he's doing this because he loves her. And granted, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean you should be doing certain things, but he was being manipulated by this soul sucker beast that was, making him believe that she was still alive and being kept in captivity, and he was trying to rescue her. So it gave him, some good motives, and it kind of made you feel for the villain a little bit here. But at the same time, he loved his children, he loved his wife, and things like that. He was trying to do things for the right reasons, but he was doing things the wrong way. Sometimes the best in, the road to hell is paved with the best intentions. That old saying. So it's one of those elements that I really loved. And of course, the father-son dynamic between Wenwu and Shang-Chi in particular, again, raising his son to be this warrior that had to put him through brutal tests and trials and things like that to train him up to be this great martial artist. And I thought they did a good job of portraying that dynamic. And of course, showing what the dynamic between the father and the daughter, Xia Ling, and all that sort of stuff as well. I thought they did just a great job with the characters in general. The comedy, like I said, was really good outside of the Trevor Slattery stuff. And that stuff was few and far between enough that it really didn't pull me out too much, but it was very much the Trevor Slattery we got in Iron Man 3, and of course the All Hail the King short, which you've not seen that. It was on the Thor Blu-ray, I believe. It was a special feature. Definitely go check it out. It's also now available on Disney Plus. That kind of sets you up for the Shang-Chi movie, and of course, especially Trevor Slattery's involvement in it. So if you have not seen that, definitely go check it out. It's kind of a nice supplementary piece to this film. But it did a good job of kind of wrapping things up from Iron Man 3. That whole thing, I know a lot of fans were upset about the Mandarin and how they handled him in Iron Man 3 being kind of this idea that was brought up by this think tank with Aldrich Killian and things like that. So this movie did a good job of kind of fleshing all that out and kind of bringing it all a little bit full circle, kind of tying it up in a little bit of a bow there. And it's a shame we're never going to actually see Iron Man versus the real Mandarin in the MCU, but I think the way they did it, going back and looking on it now, I think it's actually good. The real Mandarin that they presented here in this film works mostly for this story, not so much anything with the Iron Man. I mean, it would have been cool to see Iron Man maybe go up against Wenwu at some point back in maybe, Wenwu's heyday and stuff in that time there where Iron Man was still around. Maybe we can, who's to say we can't get a movie that takes place, somewhere between Iron Man 3 and the Avengers 2 or something like that, maybe sometime down the road, maybe a what if story or something like that. That would be cool to see, but as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to get that with Robert Downey Jr. returning, but never say never, as I've always said here on the channel when it comes to the return of Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr., things like that. But overall, this movie did a great job of setting up Shang-Chi becoming a new Avenger, especially when it comes to the fact with the post-credit scene here, which was highly talked about among critics and people around Hollywood when this movie debuted on the red carpet. And of course, it involves Shang-Chi. At the end of the movie, he gets the 10 rings after he defeats Wenwu, and Wenwu actually gives the 10 rings to Shang-Chi after he realizes everything that he's been doing and things like that. And he's unfortunately killed by the Soul Sucker, and he gives the 10 rings to Shang-Chi, I should say. And Shang-Chi, after saving, the tribe and, preventing the Soul Sucker, and with the great protector, the dragon, helping him out and, saving, the world, so to speak, with this Soul Sucker, could have run roughshod all over the world. He is definitely noticed by Wong and, of course, the Sanctum Sanctorum and all this sort of stuff. So Wong comes and asks Shang-Chi and Katie to come with him. And, of course, at the end of the post-credits here, or the mid-credit scene, I should say, we have Wong kind of looking over these 10 rings, like, where did these 10 rings come from? They're very ancient and even, older than thousands and thousands of years that Wenwu had them, and it gave him long life and things like that. But they noticed that inside these 10 rings, there's a beacon that's going off, and the beacon is being sent to where we don't know, to who we don't know, probably somewhere in space. Could this be a Galactus tease? Could this be a tease to, Kang the Conqueror that we've already seen confirmed in the Loki series is coming to the MCU? We just don't know, but there's this little subtle tease here they're dropping those breadcrumbs to what the MCU has planned moving forward, and I think seeing that is really cool. And of course, in this entire scene where they're trying to figure out where these rings came from, we also see Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and we also see Mark Ruffalo back in Bruce Banner form, which is the first thing that jumped out to me. He's no longer Professor Hulk. He's able to at least change back to his human form as Bruce Banner, so that jumped out to me. I wonder what the story is behind that. Maybe we'll get a little bit more details in the She-Hulk series coming up, which he's supposed to be in as well, so we'll see what all that is. But at the end of it, of course, they say it's not Chitauri, they say it's not vibranium, so they don't know exactly where they come from, but there's still a lot of mystery behind these 10 rings. The organization, not so much, but the rings themselves, yes, there is also an organization that Wenwu rung that was kind of like his terrorist organization type of, thing going on that we kind of got little hints of throughout the MCU up to this point. And of course, there's another post-credit scene that shows Shang-Chi's sister, Xia Ling, now becoming the official, the new Mandarin. I wouldn't call her the Mandarin per se, but she's now the person in charge of the 10 Rings organization. Whether she's going to use them for good or evil, we don't quite know yet. It kind of looked kind of ominous, though, like she could maybe be one to maybe use these for her personal gains. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. She kind of had a rough childhood and was jaded and things like that because of the training that Wenwu put her through. And, of course, Shang-Chi was not around as he felt remorseful for some of the missions he had to do, and he left as well. So it seemed like, their relationship was a little bit better toward the end of it, but perhaps maybe it's not 100% healed from Xia Ling's perspective here. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do with the 10 Rings organization. But I thought as a whole, this movie was very entertaining. The action was great. The setups and everything that they do for the greater MCU is all there. We even got a little bit of a Abomination versus Wong here. Maybe perhaps we're going to see Wong again. Maybe, he looked like he was kind of letting Abomination out to kind of compete in this, underground fight ring that Xia Ling had set up and all this sort of stuff like that as well. So all that is great. The love story between Wenwu and Yin Li, his wife that unfortunately passed away, that was Shang-Chi's mother. I think that was all done very, very well. It's just a beautiful film to look at. The fighting is great. It's also 100% MCU, 100% Marvel. So it's definitely worth your time and worth your money to go check out in the theaters. And it's also made a lot of money on its opening weekend here, so that's a good sign for the movie theaters moving forward. As long as these movies can deliver, I think audiences will go out and support these films in these tough, trying times. So it's good to see that. And we've got, it looks like it's going to have a ripple effect on the rest of Hollywood, as now Venom 2 has moved up their movie release date a couple weeks in response to this great reception for Shang-Chi. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here, guys, but let me know what you guys think. Please comment down below. Let me know if you guys like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the 10 Rings. And if you have, great. If you haven't, let me know why. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and definitely hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. And until my next video, guys, take care.
Bye.